Hi everyone, it's Leslie and welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about, or at least wrap up the books that I had read since the beginning of January that I've never talked about on the channel. I really only started recently making videos consistently again, so there's just a few that I read earlier this year that I would like to share with you. I will start with the books that I read in January and going forward in the calendar year. The first book I finished in January was Scythe by Neal Shusterman. This is the first in a trilogy. It is about a post-apocalyptic world where people don't die anymore. So it's become sort of a utopia where people don't get sick, yada, yada, yada. But to deal with the population, they have to have this group called Scythe come and glean people when it's their time to leave the earth. And it can be old people, it could be young people, whatever. And I really enjoyed this book. It has a bit of a mystery and it sometimes feels like a fugitive type book. So like The Fugitive, the movie. I don't know why I didn't pick up the sequel. So hopefully I will get to that at some point, maybe this year. But I did enjoy it and I did give this book 4 stars. After that, I picked up Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This is also a beginning of a series. That is a YA book about superheroes and supervillains in this world that they live in. I guess it's our world, but it's run by the superheroes and the supervillains. And I found this just okay. I loved the Lunar Chronicles, I believe is what Marissa Meyer's previous series was, with Cinder and Scarlet, sort of a sci-fi retelling of some fairy tales. I loved that series. I think I gave all those books 5 stars. I was so drawn in. I thought the characters were really fun. However, in Renegades, I found it pretty boring and the characters were just cliche to me. And frankly, the main girl, I can't remember her name, I found so irritating. I thought that everything she said and did made no sense, and I don't know, I just couldn't relate. So I don't really have any interest in continuing this series. I know some people love it, but was not for me. I did give this 3 stars. I guess it was middle of the road. It wasn't like the worst book I've ever read, but not enough to like invest any more time in it. The next book that I finished in this year was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, I believe is his name. And this is an adult thriller that follows a woman who is accused of murdering her husband, and after that she goes completely mute. So she is put into a psychiatric facility, and we're following her story, if she actually did it or didn't, and a psychologist who comes and sort of interviews her. I thought this book was fantastic. I was sucked into the story. I wanted to know what happened. I felt like the twists in it were really well done. I don't think it was perfect. I really found that this was one of the better thrillers that I've ever read. I am very tough on thrillers, so if you're also a person who gets a little irritated when the twist in a thriller is not great, this book I feel like won't let you down. I did give this 4 stars, and to be honest, I don't know why I didn't give it 5, but I'm sure there were parts in it that I thought were not as great as they could have been. But I would definitely recommend this if you are in the mood for a thriller. The next book I finished was Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This is a middle grade story that is about a girl named Sophie who ends up teaming up with a magician named Howl in his moving castle, and sort of the story just unfolds from there. I really thought this was cute. I know Summer over at Summer's Moving Bookshelf loves this book, so if you want all of the raving reviews, go check out her channel. But I thought this was really cute. It's whimsical, the characters are lovable, it's funny, so if you're into middle grade or you're interested in reading a middle grade book, definitely check this one out. The next book I finished was The Splendid and the Vile, a saga of Churchill, family, and defiance during the Blitz by Eric Larson. This is a nonfiction account of Churchill during World War II, and obviously during the Blitz, which was the bombing of London. I really enjoyed this book. I find Erik Larson to be a very accessible nonfiction author. I think that if you are interested in nonfiction but a little intimidated or you don't read it a lot, Erik Larson is a good place to start. His most famous book is probably The Devil in the White City, which is about H.H. Holmes, serial killer during the Chicago World's Fair. I actually have never read that, or at least I've never read it all the way through. But I've read a couple of his other books, and I think The Splendid and the Vile is one of the better books that I've read of his. There are parts that are a little boring, and I think that just happens with nonfiction because you get kind of bogged down in the fact there are just parts of it that you don't care about as much as others. So, beware of that. I love nonfiction and I listen to it on audiobook all of the time. And I do think that it's worth listening to. Churchill is really a fascinating character in history. I think more people should learn about him. I gave this 4 stars and it's definitely worth checking out. The next book I finished was A Duty to the Dead by Charles Todd. This is the beginning of another mystery series. I was reading this after I sort of got through the Maisie Dobbs series and the Amory Ames series, and I wanted to see if there was another series like this that I would get into. And I liked this one okay. This one does take place during World War I and in Britain, so it has that same Maisie Dobbs feel. I just didn't connect to it as much. I was listening to it on audiobook, and I think part of it was the narrator wasn't great, and that can make or break it for sure. Also, this is written by a mother-son team, I believe. Like Charles Todd is the pseudonym. And I just thought that was interesting. So I wouldn't say this was bad, but this was just very middle of the road. I didn't really care that much. I could be persuaded to pick up the next book in the series. It's just not top of my list. So I gave this 3 stars. Not great, not bad. And the last book that I read before I started making videos consistently again was King of Crows by Libba Bray. This is the final book in the Diviners Quartet. Is that what you call it? It's 4 books. So, and I gave this 5 stars. A little bit of it is just nostalgia. I absolutely love the Diviners. That first book is so, so good. It's so imaginative. And in particular, I've talked about this as being just the best audiobook you can listen to. January Lavoie, who is the narrator, is just impeccable. She can do like 50 different voices that are so distinct and you know exactly who is talking. It's just awesome. It's like listening to an old-timey radio drama. I don't even know how it works, but I love it. So regardless of the story, I think I just love listening to January Lavoie narrate anything. This series, if you're not familiar with it, is a YA paranormal mystery of sorts. It's a little bit scary. Honestly, the first book is quite scary, I think, or at least just made me feel weird. And it follows this King of Crows who is basically evil incarnate, and the Diviners have these like special powers. They all have different ones. So one of them can read objects, one of them can dream walk, one of them can disappear. So they all do different things, sort of like superheroes, and it's set in the 1920s in New York, and so the accents and the jazz age, it's just awesome. I will say that if you're sensitive to anything that's like occult-ish, this is not for you. It's got a little bit of that in it, actually kind of a lot of that in there, so that may turn people off. So I just wanted to, it's not really a trigger warning, it's just more of a content warning that if you're not into that side of like scariness, it's probably one you'll want to skip. But I gave it 5 stars. I feel like it was a very good ending to the series. I still love all these characters. I could listen to this series from start to finish all over again and still really, really enjoy it. So if you're into that kind of thing, this may be a book that you would really, really like. So that is the books that I read from January to the end of April that I'd never talked about on the channel. Pretty good mix of books. Some nonfiction, some adult, some YA. You never know. I read pretty much anything. I hope you're having a great Memorial Day. Remember what this day is for. Servicemen and women who gave their lives for our freedom. It's very important to me, and I thank anybody who has someone in their family who paid the ultimate price. Hope you have a great day. I'll see you later. Bye.